primitive pre-warp race, dangers necessitating the breaking of the Prime Directive, and some links to some past Star Trek races we haven't seen on screen for a while. All of that coming up. Hey guys, I'm Nick and welcome back to Sci-Finatics. Today we're talking about episode 6 of Star Trek Discovery season 5 entitled Whistlespeak. This episode was a bit of a return to the old TOS or TNG style of storytelling, where the crew had to go down to a planet and there are pre-warp civilizations, they've got to disguise themselves and they've got to blend in with the locals. And they've got to find something and they've got to solve a problem, but they've got to do that without letting the local inhabitants know about advanced technologies and everything. It's a kind of episode we've seen many times before in Star Trek, and it can sort of go either way in terms of whether it ends up being a bit of a filler episode or whether it ends up being a quite interesting story. I think this week's episode kind of straddled the line a little bit on this one. It did feel like a filler episode, but there was also some interesting aspects to it as well. So let's get into this week's review of episode 6, Whistlespeak. This episode was kind of split into 3 kind of components. We had Burnham and Tilly down on the planet infiltrating the villages to try to uncover the next puzzle piece to the progenitor's technology. We had Adira taking up some bridge duties, and there's a little bit of lack of confidence there that they've got to overcome. And also Dr. Culber, he's experiencing some bit of a spiritual awakening since his outing as Janal back on Trill. And he goes through a few bits and pieces with Stamets and also Book in terms of what's going on with him emotionally, I suppose, and spiritually since that event. After analysing the vial from last week's Clue, I know the nickname for this show is Disco, but I think the director of photography took that just a little bit too literally with the lighting for this opening scene, which just looked somewhat ridiculous and a bit too nightclub-esque. They're kind of struggling to find out where the next planet is, and they work out that due to it being distilled water, not rainwater, that they kind of end up tracking it down to this planet called Helmo, which had to use some sort of atmospheric condenser technology to extract water from the atmosphere because it was such a dry planet. And it appears that this planet was seeded with a bunch of technology towers that enabled artificial rain to come from that, which was done by the Denobulans many years ago. We find out, courtesy of Dr. Kovich and his yellow legal pad. He loves the old tech, Dr. Kovich. He's got the glasses on, he's got the old 21st century yellow notepad there. He's always a bit of a retro technology guy, this Kovich. So that takes them to the planet Helmo, where they have to essentially work out that the puzzle piece is going to be located in one of these towers, but there's a whole lot of religious bits and pieces wrapped up with the locals and everything, races to the High Temple and everything. And obviously Tilly and Burnham have to participate in that in order to get up to the High Temple, or the tower, the technology tower built by the Denobulans, in order to get closer to where this clue's hidden. The list of scientists that Kovich uncovers is interesting. We've got a few interesting names and races there. Obviously Velik was the first person to hide the first puzzle piece, the Romulan, followed by Janal Bix, which we know was the guy on Trill. Carmen Cho was the Terran we saw, and this episode features a Denobulan, Hideroshi Creel. Obviously Denobulans made most famous with Dr. Phlox on Enterprise. And then our final puzzle piece has been hidden by a Betazoid doctor by the name of Marina Direx. Obviously Marina being the first name for Marina Sirtis, who played Councillor Troy for many years on Star Trek The Next Generation. So Tilly and Burnham implant themselves into the local village, participate in some of their local rituals and everything, being a pre-warp civilization, in order to get themselves closer to the top of this technology tower, which they call the High Summit. And there's a lot of ancient traditions involved in competing a race-like journey in order to honour the gods or whatever. Seeing Burnham and Tilly jogging did remind me of season 1, where they used to do this around the hallways of the Discovery. We see Tilly and Burnham having these retinal tricorders implanted for this mission. I get the fact that they need to use technology and that they don't want the locals to see them using technology, but it just seems like in Discovery in the 32nd century, anything they can do to remove props. Let's face it, Star Trek fans love props. We love phasers, we love tricorders, we see this stuff, we want to have it on our shelf in the background, but all this new technology from Discovery and 32nd century, it removes all that. It becomes completely holographic. You know, I can't get a 32nd century tricorder and stick it on the shelf behind me. Everything's kind of virtual. It pops up. It's a screen. And I think it takes something away from Star Trek. I think Star Trek has always been great with all these things, the technology, transporters and you know, tech phasers, tricorders, all that sort of thing. And when they beam to the planet, they're not going to a transporter room. They're just beaming from the ready room. There are certain ingredients in the recipe of Star Trek that seems to have been removed that we kind of love, and we love those little niceties, and they're being taken away from us. We see Adira on the bridge. They've requested a bit of bridge time, and Rayna's encouraging them to participate and be more involved in everything. And Adira's lacking in a little bit of confidence. They kind of wanted the responsibility of working on the bridge, but they're just a little bit unsure of themselves. We see Culber not only talking to his abuela, his grandmother, and also, you know, Stamets and Book and everything. He's sort of going through this weird phase post being Janal on Trill, where things are just kind of seeing a little bit different to him. He's kind of having a bit of a spiritual awakening kind of scenario going on there. And he's consulting his abuela for some advice. He's consulting Book for some advice. He's consulting Stamets for a brain scan because he thinks there's something wrong with him, which there isn't. So it definitely seems like the writers have got Culber on definitely a bit of a journey this season. And I'm guessing by the end of the season, he won't be the same person that he started off at the beginning of the season. Along Tilly and Burnham's journey to race to the high summit to find this puzzle piece, they meet Obaz, who is the kind of village elder or the chief of the village, and his daughter Rava. And she joins in the race to the High Temple as well, even though her father doesn't want her to participate. And there's a good reason for that, which we find out a bit later. We soon find out that the atmospheric tower that's encased in rock that the Denobulans put on this planet to give them rain, these used to cover the entire surface of the planet. There used to be quite a few of these, but over time they've failed one by one, and I guess the villages that used to occupy their locations have either died out or they've had to regroup and move to another village where they did have an operational tower. So it seems like it's become a bit of a ticking bomb scenario now in terms of Burnham and Tilly having to save the tower so that it doesn't fail, so that the Helem Knights can have rain again and that the planet doesn't die out altogether. We get a very awkward kind of race to the bottom of the temple tower because they have to eat these sugar cubes that basically remove all moisture from your body and therefore make you incredibly thirsty, and then make you run a torturous jog along a country trail with bowls of water every few meters to tempt you to quit. It's a bit torturous. And then even Tilly and Rava have to run carrying a water bowl in front of their face for the last stretch of the race. Yeah, it's a bit of a mean race, really. Whoever the villager was that came up with this was a bit sadistic. Meanwhile, Burnham pulls out of the race. She goes off to find the control panel to the tower and has to utilize the skills of Adira up on the bridge to reprogram that so that it keeps working or starts working again so it can produce rain for the planet. And we soon find out that Tilly and Rava win the race to the top of the temple. The race is basically a race to the death, essentially, and those that make it to the temple basically end up being sacrificed to the gods to create rain, which is obviously completely unnecessary because we know it's a technological thing that's been built by the Denobulans, and it's going to rain regardless of whether there is a sacrifice in the temple or not. And here's where comes in that old chestnut of these kind of episodes, where it's the dilemma: do you break the Prime Directive or do you not break the Prime Directive? All of these episodes, I think in every single one of them, wherever they end up beaming down to a planet with a less technologically advanced race and that they have to keep hidden, they've got themselves made up to look like locals, you know immediately there is going to be a moment in that episode when the Prime Directive has to be broken. And whenever they say, oh, we might have to break the Prime Directive, you know they're going to break the Prime Directive. Which, of course, Burnham does by beaming into the temple to plead with the leader, Obaz, to basically open the doors. Let them out. We don't need to see these people die. It's going to rain anyway. Don't worry about killing your daughter and Tilly because, yeah, the machine works now. I fixed it. You don't have to worry. Yes, Burnham had to beam into the room with Obaz to plead with him to open the door for Rava and Tilly. Couldn't the transporter room, if they even have a bloody transporter room anymore, I don't know, couldn't they literally beam Burnham into a point in the room around the corner, and she comes around the corner and goes, oh, I just ran up all those flights of stairs to come and tell you to let them out and don't kill them. And she didn't need to beam into the room right in front of his line of sight. She could have surely beamed into a place in the room that was, around the corner of a pillar or something, where could have kept a little bit hidden, and then just literally stepped out and said, I'm here now, without magically appearing in a blue sparkle in front of him. Surely that would have alleviated the whole breaking the prime directive routine. But then obviously Burnham sits him down and tells him about the whole thing about Denobulans building the thingo, and tells him all of completely spills the beans. It's like, okay, I get you've broken the prime directive once by beaming in, but do you really have to tell him everything now? Surely some of that information could have been withheld. I guess Burnham just figured, well, we're breaking the prime directive, we might as well just tell him everything now. Which sort of, to me, kind of seemed a little bit unnecessary, to kind of divulge all of that information and not kind of keep any of it back. And then the poor guy, his mind is just blown. You can see him just freaking out about it. And it's like, did you really have to go to that extent and give him that much information? We've seen this kind of thing play out before. It is a nice callback to those kind of episodes, but I wouldn't necessarily say we saw it from a radically different perspective, or there wasn't anything massively engaging that looked at it, differently than the other times we've done this sort of thing before in Star Trek. The Discovery crew finds an extra puzzle piece in one of the other towers, I think it was, on the planet, which they're able to do using the numbers on the wall carved into the wall, or the Tilly decodes the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or whatever it is on the wall, and somehow that leads them to the puzzle piece. That kind of, they didn't really explain that particularly well, I thought. It's like, okay, yes, she's learning the numbers 1 to 5 scratched into the wall of the temple, but how did knowing how this particular race writes numbers, how did that exactly lead them to the puzzle piece? I found that a little bit fuzzy, that explanation. It just sort of seemed like a bit of an afterthought that we kind of rushed through the ending explanation. We got that puzzle piece right at the end. Oh, we've got it now. We didn't see how you got it. Well, we've just got it because we knew the numbers. We spent so much time with the villagers and the race and everything that we didn't have any time left in the episode to actually go on the adventure to find the puzzle piece. That again felt a little rushed to me. At the end, Book and Culber have a bit of a chat on the shuttlecraft books. They're playing Asteroids or something on the video game console that he's got there on the shuttle, and they share a meal, one of his abuela's recipes or something. And we find out from Book that there's, maybe still some feelings there, that he maybe misses what he had with Burnham in terms of their relationship and so forth. So this is definitely pointing towards a reconciliation or a reigniting of the relationship between Burnham and Book towards the end of the season, I'm guessing. The other Starfleet vessels that have been searching for Mol and Lark have found them, and the Discovery goes off to join the search for Mol and Lark. All in all, look, this wasn't my favourite episode this season. In fact, I'd probably go as far as to say this has probably been my least favourite episode this season. Yes, we had a return to the TOS or TNG style Planet of the Week, technologically inferior race, having to be infiltrated, and threats of breaking the prime directive kind of routine was sort of a hark back to that old sort of storytelling style. But I don't think we went anywhere that we haven't necessarily gone before. And some of the ways that the prime directive was broken could have easily been avoided, I think, with a little bit of more targeted transporter placement. So there was a few little bits and pieces in the story that kind of felt a little bit like a filler episode, but that might just be me. You guys might have loved it. Leave your thoughts in the comment section. We'll get chatting about that. Guys, on the weekend, I'm doing a live stream, the second for the year. Come along and join in the fun on Saturday, May the 4th. We'll be chatting all about Star Trek on Star Wars Day. So May the 4th be with Star Trek, and yes, we'll be talking about the last few episodes of Discovery, other Star Trek news and everything. It'll be a lot of fun, so come along and join us for the live show. If you haven't subscribed to Sci-Finatics yet, be sure you do so. and also click on my merch store link in the description. Check out some of my cool t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, caps, all that sort of thing. Keeps the channel rolling along, so really support your support with that. I'll be back on Saturday for the live show. I'll see you then.